Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Dennis Prager Show. I have wonderful personal news, and that is yesterday I was diagnosed as negative. My COVID is over, and I'm delighted to report that to you. The many people who wished my death on the internet, the world of the left is an especially mean world. It's a question that I've dealt with all of my life. Are mean people attracted to the left, or does the left make otherwise decent people mean? I think the answer is both, but there is no question that there is a cruelty in the human condition on the left that is not to be found nearly as much on the right. There's no doubt about it. Everybody listening knows that to be true. And why that is a very tough question. Why do people choose to be despicable? Don't know exactly. I have theories. In any event, I have registered as negative. The therapeutics that I took were magnificent. I believed in them for the last year and a half as prophylactics and then as therapeutics. I agree with Harvey Risch. I believe he's at, where's he, at Yale? The epidemiologist. I don't know if we'll have him on today, but I do want him on again. And there are many who do believe that vast numbers of Americans died needlessly because the medical establishment has been corrupted by the left, just as everything else in society has. And people died because they were not given therapeutics. They're still saying at the New York Times the gigantic lie that the purpose of ivermectin is as a horse dewormer, as if people are taking it and doctors are prescribing it to people not knowing that it is also a multi-purpose drug. Many drugs are used on animals. To describe it as a horse dewormer is a New York Times lie. New York Times lie is a big lie. It's a big lie. It's equal to the Washington Post lie. They all lie. And I called them out on it, and it drives them crazy. It drives them crazy that I don't live in fear. One of the animating impulses of people on the left is they're scared. That's why they have safe spaces on campuses. They're scared of dissent. They're scared of male-female differences. They're just scared of life, not to mention scared of death. Very difficult to deal with people who live in fear. Fear is a huge motivator, and courage is a huge antidote to fear. Indeed, I'll tell you what else is. Reason. Reason is an antidote to fear. And so, for all those wishing me a quick demise, bad news for you, I'm fine. There's no guarantee that you will be fine in life. There is no such thing. I don't walk around thinking I'm guaranteed. I don't believe that God will necessarily protect me more than the next guy. I don't know if I am more worthy than the next guy. But I do believe in reason, and I do believe far more in science than the scientists do. Scientists believe in the CDC, and I believe in science. So there you go, and that is the, so let's see, interesting how, all right, people, that's fascinating. All right, 1-8-PRAGER-776. I spoke to you for the last few days about COVID and about the, about vaccine. There is a fetish on the vaccine issue. The fact that people who have had COVID are not considered to have antibodies, and that they too have to get vaccinated, that should be proof to you that the issue of the vaccine is a fetish. That's all it is. It's an irrational fetish. Why people who have natural immunity have to get a vaccine and should be fired from their place of work. Anyway, people shouldn't be fired from their jobs to begin with. This is a first in American history. When you go back to 1905 and the famous case of the man who was fined $5, he wasn't fired from his job. He wasn't rendered incapable. The guy wouldn't take a smallpox vaccine. He wasn't rendered incapable of work. He was fined $5, which I guess, I don't know what that would be in today. Would it be $500? Is it? I mean, it would be a serious sum of money, but it didn't render him incapable of feeding his family. The hatred of Americans who won't take a vaccine, the hatred that has been fostered by this despicable president. I've never described the president as despicable. He's a despicable man. He is the most disuniting president. He makes Trump look like Mr. Unity. Yeah. The dividing of America. His inaugural address was despicable. Systemic racism in America. Never has there been an anti-American inaugural address. Only by this despicable man named Joe Biden, this crook who enriched his family while he was in the Senate. Man who sat in his basement the entire time running for president. Well, it's a very bad time in this country. However, it would be a lot better if people had the courage to fight the left. Barry Weiss, I'd like to read to you from her piece. Barry Weiss was a reporter, a major reporter for the New York Times when she quit that lying newspaper, to her great credit. We got here because of cowardice. We get out with courage, by Barry Weiss, from her own website. Persuasion, the purpose of argument, is replaced with public shaming. Moral complexity is replaced with moral certainty. Facts are replaced with feelings. Ideas are replaced with identity. Forgiveness is replaced with punishment. Debate is replaced with deplatforming. Diversity is replaced with homogeneity of thought. Inclusion with exclusion. In this ideology, speech is violence. But violence, when carried out by the right people in pursuit of a just cause, is not violence at all. In this ideology, bullying is wrong unless you are bullying the right people, in which case it's very, very good. In this ideology, education is not about teaching people how to think. It's about re-educating them in what to think. In this ideology, the need to feel safe trumps the need to speak truthfully. In this ideology, if you do not tweet the right tweet or share the right slogan, your whole life can be ruined. Just ask Tiffany Riley, a Vermont school principal who was fired because she said she supports Black lives, but not the organization Black Lives Matter. In this ideology, intentions don't matter. That is why Emmanuel Cafferty, a Hispanic utility worker at San Diego Gas and Electric, was fired for making what someone said he thought was a white supremacist hand gesture, when in fact he was cracking his knuckles out of his car window. I didn't know about that story. Did you? Man fired from his job because somebody thought he was making a white supremacist hand gesture? A Hispanic utility worker? Yeah, I'll tell you, if there's any group known for its white supremacists, it's Hispanics. Well, if Larry Elder could be the black face of white supremacy, then Emmanuel Cafferty could be the Hispanic face of white supremacy. And you know who believe these lies? The best educated. 1-8-PRAGER-776. We continue.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
He is America. Captain America's trying, but nah, not so much. It's Superman. That's why kids have loved him. Adults have loved. When I saw Superman, I was, 8 years old, and I saw Christopher Reeve. You believed a man could fly. And I wanted to be an American, and now I am. But they've killed it. They killed James Bond in the new movie. Sorry, guys, spoilers. I've seen it. It's crap. Don't waste your time. They killed James Bond. Dead. Gone. Because I guess what? He was too sexy? Too toxic in his masculinity? Gone!
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. Trending now on the Larry Elder Show.
They lied and said I was taking horse dewormer. First of all, it was prescribed to me by a doctor.
Yeah.
Along
they
with
shouldn't have said it was
a bunch of other medications.
If you got a human pill, because there were people that were taking it, the veterinary medication, and you're not, obviously. You got it from a doctor, so that it shouldn't be called that. Ivermectin can be a very effective medication.
Did you see how uncomfortable he was? See, leftists aren't used to pushback, and that's exactly what Joe Rogan gave them, pushback. They're used to existing in these bubbles. They all think alike. They all talk alike. I'm not even sure that they all believe the same thing, but they're so cowardly that they just live to impress each other.
Dude.
Within these bubbles.
Dude.
Yeah, so let me tell you something. This guy, Sanjay Gupta, I've watched him a couple of times on CNN. I've watched some clips, and I tried to, just try to stomach through it, honestly. I don't have a lot of respect for Sanjay Gupta because I believe that he deceives a lot of people as well. I believe CNN does that. And first off, the drug ivermectin, we know that it's a human drug. He knows that it's a human drug.
Dude.
And Joe Rogan, my goodness, called him out on it.
Dude.
And it's a good thing. And by the way, let me correct the record. The medicine for animals is called neuromectin, not ivermectin. So not only is CNN lying about it, they don't even have the decency to look up the correct drug for you. This is why we cannot trust the mainstream media. They just lie.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Man, I miss my father, and I want him to be here with me, but he's not.
We all had something in common. A lot of us were miserable. We had no fathers in our lives.
This is how I began the life of crime. I desired to have a father who would tell me that what I did was wrong.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Time you can come to Christ when the Spirit of God flows.
You ever thought of going to seminary?
Billy Graham.
Gloria a Dios, hermano. Él está listo para ser transformado por el poder de sus palabras.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
anything. Hey, all, Dennis Prager here. I want to remind you about Pure Talk. It's a great way to save about $800 a year per family. It's as good as Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T, except it's so much cheaper. The rate is astonishing. $30 a month, unlimited text, unlimited talk, 6 gigabytes of data. You can get more data if you want. Fantastic buys on phones. I got a phone through them. I kept my own number and own phone, so I have 2 now. It's a phenomenal product. All you do is dial pound 250 and say Dennis Prager. Pound 250, say Dennis Prager, and you also get 50% off your first month. And that's the great deal that it is. Unlimited talk, unlimited text, 6 gigabytes of data, and that is at Pure Talk. Again, dial pound 250 and say Dennis Prager. I have a magic name. Reading to you from Barry Weiss about what is happening in this country. We got here because of cowardice. We get out with courage. And she gives examples here. People fired. The Vermont school principal fired because she said she supports Black Lives, but not the organization Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter is a hate organization. If you support it, you support hatred in this country. Undiluted, left-wing, Marxist hatred. Okay? Period. Everybody knows that. No, not everybody. Most people know that. Most people know much of what the left stands for is a lie. But you can't say it. I say it. Just as I say that it is better to have natural immunity than to get a vaccine. I've never said people shouldn't get a vaccine. I was lied about in the Washington Post, on CNN. I'll play for you the CNN way of Chris Cuomo's way of distorting what I said. It's lying on CNN comes so naturally that I don't even believe they're aware of the fact that they lie. And I will play it for you. This is what we have entered. So she gives example, another one, of a Hispanic utility worker in San Diego fired because somebody made a white supremacist hand gesture. He was in fact cracking his knuckles out of his car window. You're guilty if one person on the left says you're guilty. In this ideology, she continues, Barry Weiss, the equality of opportunity is replaced with equality of outcome as a measure of fairness. If everyone doesn't finish the race at the same time, the course must have been defective. Thus the argument to get rid of the SAT or the admissions tests for public schools like Stuyvesant in New York or Lowell in San Francisco. In this ideology, you are guilty for the sins of your fathers. In other words, you are not you. You are only a mere avatar of your race or your religion or your class. That is why third graders in Cupertino, California were asked to rate themselves in terms of their power and privilege in third grade. Wow. Yeah. Third graders rating themselves in terms of power and privilege. The people teaching your kids in most cases are ruining your children. Just so you'll know. One high schooler in New York tells me, writes Barry Weiss, students in his school are told if you are white and male, you are second in line to speak. This is considered a normal and necessary redistribution of power. What we call cancel culture is really the justice system of this revolution. And the goal of the cancellation is not merely to punish the person being canceled. The goal is to send a message to everyone else. Step out of line and you are next. It's worked. A recent Cato study found that 62% of Americans are afraid to voice their true views. That's why I have a large listenership. The thing that people say to me the most when they meet me is thank you for speaking out. It gives me comfort to hear truth, and I don't blame them. I understand why I would. Yep, 62% of Americans are afraid to voice their true views. All 62% are on the right, because that's what the left does. They shut you down. The left has always done that, from Lenin to the present. Nearly a quarter of American academics endorse ousting a colleague for having a wrong opinion about hot-button issues. What, a quarter of American academics? I'm sure it's more than that. Ousting a colleague for having a wrong opinion about hot-button issues such as immigration or gender differences. And nearly 70% of students favor reporting professors if the professor says something that students find offensive, according to a Challey Institute for Global Innovation survey. 70% of students. It reminds me of something I don't think I've ever mentioned. I find the most scary of all horror movies monster children. I wonder if that's a normative view. Children who are monsters are even scarier than adults who are monsters. And what the left has produced in too many cases are child monsters. Very scary. It's a very scary thing. 70% of students favor reporting professors. Wow. This is without the Gestapo were producing Hitler Youth. This is without the Communist Party were producing Komsomolniks, the Soviet Communist Youth League. That's the state of things. This is a very powerful piece by Barry Weiss. We're going to put it up at DennisPrager.com. And we continue.
Trending now on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Secretary Chow, I'm glad you were available today because there are two headlines. One from the Wall Street Journal. Biggest U.S. retailers charter private cargo ships to sail around port delays. Then in the New York Times, it's not sustainable. What America's port crisis looks like up close. There aren't enough workers. There aren't enough ships. You've been the Secretary of Labor and the Secretary of Transportation. What do we do?
It's a very dire situation. You know, when COVID initially hit our shores early in 2020, I was then Secretary of Transportation, and we quickly focused on keeping the transportation supply chains open so that essential medical supplies, groceries, and other essentials were available. And that effort actually required some pretty strong measures. Number one, we decided to ease some restrictions on truckers so that they can keep goods moving. We made sure that the national airspace kept airplanes flying because even though at one point planes were nearly empty of passengers, commercial airliners also routinely transport a lot of goods, especially medical supplies. You know, remember those early days of the initial lockdowns? We had hoarding of toilet paper, sandy wipes, shortage of masks. Stores were putting limits on how much customers can buy of one item, and more than 70% of domestic freight moves via trucks. But today's supply chain problems extend all the way, where worker shortages and COVID lockdowns have slowed the loading of cargo ships from where they started to U.S. ports, where, as you just mentioned, the other day there were over 60 freighters with tens of thousands of storage containers offshore waiting for an opportunity to unload.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
It's not just about saying I have a right in this country to not have the government not allow me to go to church, but also that the government cannot compel me to participate in any sort of event, including a vaccine, by the way, that goes against my sincerely held religious beliefs. And so it should just be a matter of course that if you have a conscious objection, then you can say, I, as a Christian, as a Muslim, as a Jew, as any sort of religion. I mean, this covers all religions, by the way, all faiths, all sincerely held beliefs. You should be able to say, I decline to be coerced into participation. But what we're seeing is that a lot of employers are not only requiring a lot of information for people to say, you know, well, you have to justify your religious exemption. We're also seeing that they want this so-called, what they're calling an interactive process. That's basically an interrogation. I have clients right now that they have filed for a religious exemption on the basis of we're pro-life, that's what the Bible teaches, and I cannot take this vaccine. And the Human Resources Department, from the legal counsel of these employers, want to sit down and basically interrogate them and say, is this really a sincerely held religious belief? And they're using this as a pretext to try to deny religious exemptions. It's absurd, and I hope that when there are more lawsuits filed, like just today, in Texas, United Airlines was forbidden from enforcing their vaccine mandate against employees who are claiming a religious exemption. So we're already seeing that the courts are protecting this, but hopefully it'll be more than just Texas.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
Talent down the line and a wonderful human being, Justin Folk. I worked with him for a couple of years. He directed No Safe Spaces. Magnificent job. The whole crowd that made that movie did a great job. The movie is a great movie. And now he has a new mini-doc for PragerU called Trading Up, Our Case for Trade Schools. Boy, does that case need to be made. Justin, I haven't seen you in a week.
It's been a while, Dennis. Good to talk to you. How you feeling?
I'm actually I'm negative. I'm over COVID.
Yeah, and to be expected. I mean, you were very well prepared. You've been preaching it, and now you've lived it. You've had the therapeutic treatment lined up, and you've proven that it works.
I think so. And a lot of, as I mentioned, a lot of people in this country wished that I would drop dead. It's an eerie thing. It doesn't bother me for me because I don't care. It does bother me for the country that there are so many people who, if you advocate therapeutics, they want you to die.
Yeah, it's really disturbing. I read some of those tweets. I just couldn't believe what people were saying about you, Dennis, and that just reveals just how vile and evil they are. So, good on you for feeling good, and I'm feeling good too, Dennis. As you know, that I was positive as well. I think we got COVID together, and by the way, I wouldn't get COVID with anybody else in the world rather than with you, Dennis. It was I don't want to make light of the virus, but I also was looking forward to natural immunity and beating this thing with therapeutics as well. So. Did I lose you? Hello?
Thought to be written in a lost journal. Now, in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century.
You can stop an earthquake. Doesn't that mean you could start one too?
That's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
I grew up poor, which is even worse than being poor.
We would have sandwiches with no meat.
My American dream entailed working hard and making $20,000 a year. But I surpassed that goal and became a corporate CEO.
We'll all be able to say, free at last! Free at last!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
The public would be outraged if they knew the truth.
Why do you think our politicians are not on the sidewalk right now talking to you?
Don't have no respect.
The old wall randomly turns into a guardrail, followed by miles of open border.
Human trafficking.
That journey is extremely dangerous.
The 7-year-old girl died in the desert.
From the country of India.
A great pillar of the community was killed by a man who had been deported at least twice.
This little urn contains the ashes of my son. His dreams cut short forever.
We're so worried about other countries' problems, and we don't even focus on our own.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
The mayor is backtracking. So it's happening. People have to stand up. These people understand that they have to get reelected. And sometimes we just have to remind them who's in charge. And we, the people, are in charge. That is our system. It is a democratic republic. We all get to participate. But we elect people that we trust. We put them in office, and we trust them to keep us safe. We trust them to abide by the Constitution and to keep us free. And when they do not do that, we have to kick their butts out of office. But the important thing is, as voters, you have to always be mindful of freedom. You have to always be mindful of freedom. Quite frankly, I do believe that it's one of the advantages that I have as a black conservative. You can
okay, am I on now?
Tom sellout, whatever.
Yeah.
There's no affirmative action plan in heaven.
Well, is he staying on? I mean, I want to.
I don't have time to worry about you.
For reasons I have no idea, the whole internet went down in this house.
To runaway slave. Because I often say our thoughts are consumed with.
Justin, I have no idea what happened. The whole internet in my house went down.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe it's big tech not wanting us to.
And we're like, what? The federal government or the Democrat Party did what to enslave us? What did they do? And then you just start looking for that. I also believe it's an advantage that people of faith have. Whether you're Christian, whether you're